The dense Amazon rainforest enveloped Jason Mitchell as he maneuvered through its tangled undergrowth. Every step demanded his full attention. Roots and vines sprawled across the muddy terrain like silent traps, and his boots squelched with each movement. Jason was no stranger to the jungle. Years of botanical research had trained him to expect both the beauty and treachery of places like this. But today was different. Today he was tracking a rare flower he had only glimpsed once before, and he felt the magnetic pull of discovery urging him deeper into unknown territory. A faint beep sounded from his GPS, marking a new waypoint on his journey. Jason paused, brushing a bead of sweat from his brow and glancing around. The sound of rushing water echoed nearby, promising a small stream ahead. Streams meant fertile ground, exactly where he expected the Heliconia to thrive. He took a deep breath and pushed forward, his focus sharpened by the hope of finding his elusive specimen. The vegetation began to thin as he neared the water's edge, and beams of sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting a soft glow over the forest floor. Jason slowed, absorbing the tranquil beauty of the place, until something caught his eye. A glimmer near the edge of the stream. He approached cautiously, every instinct on high alert. At first he thought he was seeing the reflection of light on water, but as he drew closer, the form lying there became unmistakable. A humanoid figure with skin that shimmered softly, emitting a faint, otherworldly glow. Jason's breath caught. Kneeling beside the figure, he saw that her skin wasn't merely reflective. It was luminescent, radiating in hues that pulsed like a quiet aurora. Her hair fanned out around her head, shifting colors as it lay against the mossy bank, blending harmoniously with the jungle's greens and browns. This was no ordinary human. Holy, he muttered, instinctively reaching for the pulse point on her neck. He froze as he felt a faint, thrumming vibration under his fingers, unlike any heartbeat he'd encountered. Her skin was cool, almost chilling, but undeniably alive. Before he could fully process what he was touching, her eyes opened. Jason recoiled, his mind grappling with the impossible. Her eyes were a brilliant molten gold, gleaming with a strange wisdom and pain. She tried to move, but a wince of agony crossed her face, her body too weak to follow her will. "Hey, easy now," he murmured, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm not going to hurt you." The woman, if that's what she was, watched him closely, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. He scanned her body and noticed an array of bruises, cuts, and unusual crystalline burns that flickered with their own internal light. Jason knew the nearest hospital was hours away. Even if he reached it, her clearly alien appearance would lead to questions and dangers he wasn't prepared to face. His field station was his only option. "I have a safe place nearby," he told her, speaking gently. "We need to move, though. Can you understand me?" Her response was barely a whisper, but her hand reached out, trembling as it grasped his sleeve. He took it as a sign of trust, and wrapped her carefully in his emergency blanket before lifting her. Her weight surprised him. She was lighter than expected, as if her bones were hollow. With steady, measured steps, he carried her back to his field station, staying alert to any sign of danger. When they reached the station, Jason shouldered open the door he'd reinforced just days ago and laid her on the cot in the small makeshift lab. The familiar surroundings felt suddenly surreal, transformed by the presence of his mysterious guest. As she settled, he reached for his canteen, offering her water in small sips. Her eyes, though exhausted, never left his face, their intense gaze making him feel both protective and curious. Her light had dimmed since he found her, and something in him feared what might happen if it disappeared entirely. "My name's Jason," he said as he began treating her wounds with his field first aid kit, hoping the sound of his voice would soothe her. "I'm a botanist, a scientist who studies plants." She seemed to relax at his voice, and he continued his work, carefully dressing her injuries. As he reached the last crystalline burn, she lifted her hand weakly to her chest and whispered, "Liara." Jason's hand stilled. "Liara, is that your name?" She nodded, though the motion seemed to cost her. His fingers tightened slightly as he finished tending to her wounds. "I don't know what brought you here, Liara, but you're safe now." The words felt strange in his mouth, but he meant them. He didn't know what he had stumbled upon, but something in him knew he couldn't abandon her. Liara's recovery progressed slowly, and Jason was acutely aware of the responsibility he'd taken on. The days in the Amazon were sweltering, but the nights brought a chill that seeped into his bones. Liara's soft, ethereal glow illuminated the small lab at night, casting an otherworldly glow across the walls. As he continued caring for her, Jason observed her keenly. She seemed to absorb every detail of her surroundings, her gaze lingering on him with an intensity that sometimes felt almost invasive. One evening, as he checked her bandages, she surprised him by speaking, her voice hesitant and halting but clear. "You saved me," she said, her words broken but comprehensible. "Thank you." Jason looked up, startled but intrigued. "You're welcome," he replied, wondering how much of their language she understood. "Can you tell me where you came from?" Liara hesitated, a flicker of pain in her eyes. She lifted a trembling hand, touching her temple briefly. Then, before Jason's astonished gaze, a rush of emotions and images cascaded into his mind. The vastness of space, the terror of pursuit, the memory of a crash landing on an alien world. The intensity made him stagger back, overwhelmed by the alien sensations. "Did you just share your memories with me?" he managed, blinking to clear his head. "Yes," Liara murmured, her gaze steady and understanding. "My kind can share knowledge directly." It was necessary. Jason marveled at the idea, his scientific curiosity firing on all cylinders. "Incredible," he whispered, "and a little terrifying." A faint smile touched her lips. "Others find it unsettling at first, but it's the fastest way to learn." Realizing she now understood English, he took a breath, determined to piece together the mysteries around her. "Who were you running from, Liara? Why were you so injured?" A shadow crossed her face. "I am what your people might call a refugee. My species has abilities that others find valuable. We can connect, harmonize with natural environments." She gestured to the forest outside. "Those who exploit worlds want to use us for their purposes." The weight of her words settled on Jason. "So, someone was trying to capture you?" "Yes, the consortium." Her eyes darkened, and her golden irises seemed to flicker with traces of the fear she'd escaped. "They hunt my kind, wanting to use us as tools. I was part of a movement to help others escape, but we were betrayed." Jason could hardly believe what he was hearing. "You came through a portal, didn't you? But it damaged your body." Liara nodded, her expression pained. "Earth's atmosphere. It is harsh on my biology. My injuries worsened after the crash." Jason felt a surge of protectiveness as he looked at her, vulnerable yet resilient. "Liara, no one's going to hurt you here. I'll help you recover, and then we'll find a way to keep you safe." A hint of gratitude softened her gaze. "Thank you, Jason." In the days that followed, as Liara's strength returned, Jason became increasingly aware of the strange energy that seemed to pulse between them. Her natural glow shifted colors as she recovered, responding to the jungle around her. One evening, as he was preparing dinner, she observed him with a mixture of curiosity and fascination. "Your species," she began, her voice thoughtful. "You use touch to convey emotions, but often hold back." Jason, caught off guard by her insight, nearly dropped the spoon in his hand. "We have rules about it," he stammered. "Different kinds of touch mean different things. Friendship, formality, intimacy." Liara tilted her head, her hair shifting to an amber shade as she absorbed his words. "My people sense compatibility through energy resonance," she explained, moving closer. "When two beings align, their energy patterns create harmony." Jason's heart skipped a beat as she held her hand just above his arm, the air between them charged with a tangible force. "And can you sense that with humans?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Liara's golden gaze held his as her fingers moved closer, brushing his skin. "I can sense many things," she replied softly, a faint smile playing at her lips. The spell between them was broken by the distant crash of a falling branch outside. Jason cleared his throat, retreating a step. "I should check the perimeter," he muttered, needing a moment to collect himself. Liara's expression softened, but she nodded, her hair shifting to a curious shade he hadn't seen before. Yes, we wouldn't want any surprises. Outside, Jason took a deep breath, trying to focus. He reminded himself that Liara wasn't human. Whatever strange attraction he felt, it couldn't lead anywhere practical. But as he glanced back at the station, the glow of her light casting gentle shadows, he felt a pull he couldn't explain. Each day brought him closer to understanding her, but also left him with more questions. Their bond felt both natural and inexplicable, a mystery beyond the science he'd devoted his life to. And somehow, amid the vast, untamed Amazon, Jason found himself willing to follow that mystery wherever it might lead. Days turned into weeks as Jason and Liara settled into an unlikely routine. Liara's recovery was remarkable. Her strength and energy levels improved every day, though her glowing skin remained a persistent reminder of her alien origin. During quiet moments, Jason would catch her outside the station, standing motionless with her eyes closed as if listening to something beyond human perception. One evening, as the Amazon canopy bathed the forest floor in warm hues, Jason found Liara standing in a small clearing near the station. Her eyes were closed, and her arms stretched outward. He watched, captivated, as a subtle shift occurred in the air around her. Plants swayed gently, their movements seemingly in sync with a rhythm only Liara could feel. The leaves, flowers, and even the tendrils of vines seemed to gravitate towards her, as though she were the center of a natural symphony. Unable to contain his curiosity, Jason stepped forward. What are you doing?" Liara opened her eyes, her gaze thoughtful. "In my world, we connect deeply with nature. Every ecosystem has its own melody, its rhythm, its pulse. I am synchronizing with this one." Jason felt a shiver as he took in her words. "You mean the plants respond to you?" Liara nodded. "Yes, my kind, the Silvani, are not observers of nature. We merge with it. Every leaf, every root, every breath of wind carries meaning, and we understand it as a second language." She extended her hand towards a flowering plant nearby, and as Jason watched, its petals turned, orienting towards her. "Incredible," he murmured, stepping closer. "And you're saying you enhance it?" "In a way, yes," she replied, her expression turning serious. "We can amplify nature's growth, harmonize with it. This is why the consortium hunts us. They want our abilities for their own purposes, to exploit worlds by using us to manipulate entire ecosystems." Jason's awe shifted to something darker. "They would force you to strip resources?" Liara's gaze dropped, her voice almost a whisper. "Yes, our gift is meant to nurture, to foster life. But the consortium sees only potential for control. They want to weaponize what we do." Jason felt a protective surge rise within him. "As long as you're here, Liara, they won't touch you. I won't let them." She met his gaze, her golden eyes softening. "Your kindness is unusual for your kind. But I believe you." Her voice carried a depth of gratitude that made Jason's heart quicken. And in that moment, he knew that his life would never be the same. Protecting Liara wasn't just an obligation. It was a choice he felt in every fiber of his being. Their connection grew with each passing day. Jason found himself drawn not only to Liara's abilities, but also to the gentle resilience and wisdom she carried. As they worked together, Jason teaching her about Earth, and Liara demonstrating the intricacies of Silvani culture, an unspoken bond formed between them, something neither science nor reason could fully explain. One afternoon, as they discussed their respective worlds over a simple meal, Liara paused, her gaze thoughtful. "Your people are cautious with touch," she observed. "You shy away from it, as if fearful." Jason looked away, slightly embarrassed. "We're complex about it. Certain kinds of touch imply different things: friendship, respect, or intimacy." Liara studied him with interest. "In my culture, we rely on resonance, an alignment of energies to know if two beings are compatible." She moved closer, her expression open and curious. "Would you like to experience it?" Jason's pulse quickened as he looked at her. Her hand hovered near his arm, and he nodded, mesmerized. As her fingers brushed his skin, a gentle warmth bloomed between them, like an invisible thread connecting them on a level beyond words. Liara's expression softened. "I feel harmony with you, Jason. A resonance." Before either could explore the moment further, a loud crack echoed through the forest, pulling them from the shared tranquility. Jason tensed, his gaze darting toward the direction of the sound. "That didn't sound like just another falling branch," he muttered, his mind already moving into a protective mode. Liara's gaze sharpened, her eyes flickering with a hint of fear. "The consortium, they may have found me." Jason clenched his fists, adrenaline flooding his system. "If they're here, we'll be ready for them." That night, Jason and Liara worked in tense silence, preparing for a possible confrontation. Jason knew the Amazon jungle better than anyone, and he had fortified the station to be as secure as possible. But he'd never anticipated facing a threat like the consortium. He adjusted the traps and reinforced their perimeter, while Liara used her abilities to subtly encourage the jungle's natural defenses. As dawn broke, an uneasy stillness blanketed the area, as though the forest itself sensed the impending danger. Jason and Liara stood side by side, scanning the dense vegetation for any sign of movement. The tension was nearly unbearable. The first attack came in the form of drones, small, silent devices that whirred through the trees, emitting faint, rhythmic pulses. Jason swore under his breath, realizing that these machines were scanning for Liara's unique biological signature. "Stay close," he whispered, pulling her behind him as he activated a homemade electromagnetic pulse device. With a soft click, it sent a short-range pulse that disrupted the drones, causing them to crash into the undergrowth. But the victory was short-lived. Moments later, the sound of footsteps echoed through the trees, the unmistakable thud of heavy boots approaching. "Here they come," Jason said, his voice low but steady. "Follow my lead." Liara nodded, her expression grim as she raised her hands, her focus intense. Jason felt a subtle shift in the air as the plants around them began to move, creating barriers and obstacles that only a Silvani could orchestrate. Vines twisted into thick walls, while branches bent to form natural barricades. The consortium troops broke through the brush, clad in sleek armor that gleamed even in the low light of the jungle. Their visors glowed with a menacing red hue, scanning the surroundings for their target. They moved with practiced efficiency, weapons drawn, their expressions obscured but their intent unmistakable. Jason waited until the first soldier was close enough, then threw a handful of dirt into his face. The soldier staggered back, momentarily blinded, and Jason took the opportunity to grab a makeshift weapon, a sturdy branch sharpened to a point, and strike. The soldier dropped to the ground, unconscious, but the others were undeterred, pressing forward through the jungle's defenses. Liara concentrated, her expression intense as she manipulated the natural elements to slow the soldiers. Plants twisted and coiled around the intruders, but the consortium's weapons began slicing through the barriers, one after another. Jason grabbed Liara's arm, guiding her back toward a denser part of the forest. "We need to fall back," he whispered. "They're cutting through faster than we can hold them off." Liara nodded, but her eyes were fierce. "They won't stop," she replied. "I have to try something more potent." Taking a deep breath, she raised her arms higher, closing her eyes in concentration. The air seemed to vibrate as she drew on a deeper reservoir of strength, and Jason felt the hair on his arms stand on end. The forest responded with a power he hadn't seen before. Massive tree roots erupted from the ground, forming impenetrable barriers around them. The soldiers stumbled, momentarily disoriented as the jungle turned against them with a force they couldn't match. But the energy expenditure took a visible toll on Liara. Her skin paled, and her glow dimmed as she swayed, exhaustion evident in every movement. "Liara!" Jason caught her as she stumbled, holding her steady. "You've done enough. We have to get you out of here." She looked up at him, her gaze unfocused. "The station. Can you get me back?" Jason nodded, hoisting her up as gently as he could. He guided her through the thick foliage, his senses on high alert as he navigated a winding path away from the main confrontation. Behind them, he could hear the consortium soldiers struggling to break through the formidable plant barricades. By the time they reached the station, Liara was barely conscious, her light flickering weakly. Jason laid her down on the cot, anxiety gripping him as he checked her pulse. It was faint, but steady. He exhaled in relief, brushing a hand gently over her forehead. "You're safe," he whispered, unsure if she could hear him. "We got away." Outside, the sounds of the forest slowly returned to normal, the drones and footsteps fading into the distance. Jason fortified the door, his mind racing as he considered their next steps. They couldn't stay here forever. The consortium would keep coming, relentless in their pursuit. He needed to find a way to help Liara fully recover and plan a strategy that could protect them both. As he turned back to check on her, Liara's eyes fluttered open, the faintest glow returning to her skin. She managed a weak smile, reaching out to grasp his hand. "Thank you, Jason," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Jason tightened his hold, his heart pounding as he met her gaze. "You don't have to thank me. I meant what I said. You're safe with me." Liara's expression softened, and for a moment Jason saw a vulnerability in her that she rarely showed. "I've been running for so long," she whispered, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and gratitude. "But with you, I feel a sense of safety I haven't known in years." Jason felt a swell of emotion he couldn't fully explain, and he knew that whatever lay ahead, he would face it with her by his side. The thought of losing her was unthinkable, and he resolved to do whatever it took to protect her, even if it meant taking on the consortium himself. As night fell over the Amazon once more, the station became a sanctuary, a haven against the darkness that loomed just beyond its walls. Jason stayed by Liara's side, his hand intertwined with hers, the unspoken bond between them growing stronger with every heartbeat. He knew that this battle was far from over, but for now, they had a reprieve, a chance to rest, to regroup, and to prepare for the inevitable challenges that lay ahead. The consortium would return, of that he had no doubt. But Jason had made a promise, and he intended to keep it. Together they would face whatever came next, united by a strength neither had expected to find in the depths of the Amazon jungle. In the days following the consortium's attack, Jason and Liara stayed hidden within the jungle's depths, each acutely aware that their temporary haven was fragile. Jason did his best to keep Liara comfortable as she recovered, but he sensed that her power was deeply depleted after using so much of it to repel the invaders. Despite her fatigue, she showed him moments of warmth and gratitude, and he felt a quiet determination growing within him, one that went beyond mere obligation. One evening, as dusk settled over the station, Jason brought Liara a warm drink he'd prepared from local herbs, hoping it would help her regain her strength. She accepted it with a faint smile, her gaze lingering on him longer than usual. "Thank you, Jason," she said softly, her voice regaining a trace of its earlier strength. "For everything you've done." "It's nothing, really," he replied, though he felt the weight of her words. "You deserve to feel safe, and I want to keep you safe." Her golden eyes studied him, flickering with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "In my world, we rarely depend on others like this. We are taught from a young age to be self-reliant. But with you—" She hesitated, as though unsure how to continue. "With you, I feel something different." Jason's heart raced as he met her gaze. "Different? How?" Liara took a deep breath, her hands resting on her lap as she searched for the words. "In my culture, when two beings resonate, when they find harmony beyond just compatibility, it forms a bond, a connection deeper than mere friendship or kinship. It's a calling to stay together." Jason swallowed, his pulse quickening as her words sank in. "Are you saying that's what we have?" Liara's gaze softened. "Yes, I feel it every time we touch, every time you're near. It's like our energies are in perfect sync." He took her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch as they sat in silence. The connection between them, once undefined, now took shape, and the choice before him became clear. He didn't need to analyze it or question it. He simply knew. She was meant to be part of his life, and he couldn't imagine letting her go. "Liara," he began, his voice barely a whisper, "if you'll stay with me, I'll protect you, whatever it takes." Her eyes shimmered, a mixture of relief and joy washing over her features. She placed her other hand over his, her skin glowing softly beneath his touch. "Then I'll stay, Jason. I'll stay with you as long as I can." In that moment, Jason knew he was making a choice not just for the present, but for a lifetime. He couldn't predict what challenges lay ahead, but the path was clear. He would stand by Liara's side, through whatever trials they faced. Their connection deepened over the next few days, as they embraced the idea of building a life together. Liara shared stories of her homeworld, describing lush, verdant landscapes that existed in harmony with her people. She told him of the Silvani's ancient traditions, of their unity with nature, and their fierce dedication to protecting their world from harm. One evening, as they watched the stars through a break in the canopy, Liara took Jason's hand, her gaze thoughtful. "There is a ritual in my culture," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It binds two beings through shared energy, creating a lasting connection. If you wish, we could perform it." Jason looked at her, the weight of her words settling over him. "You mean, like a marriage?" "In a way," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "It would be a pledge to protect, to support, and to cherish one another." Without hesitation, Jason nodded. "Then let's do it." They stood together in the clearing, hands clasped as they prepared to perform the ritual. Liara closed her eyes, her face serene as she began to hum a soft, melodic tune. Jason felt a surge of energy flowing through her hands into his, warm and comforting, as if their very beings were intertwining. Slowly, a faint light blossomed between them, growing brighter with each passing moment until it enveloped them in a soft, radiant glow. Jason felt a wave of calm wash over him, a sense of belonging so profound it brought tears to his eyes. When he opened them, he saw that Liara's face mirrored his own joy and wonder. The ritual complete, they embraced, their bond sealed. It was a new beginning, a promise that transcended words, one rooted in trust, love, and the strength to face whatever challenges awaited them. As they returned to the station, Jason noticed a faint glow on Liara's skin, a soft new light near her abdomen. She followed his gaze, her hand resting gently over the spot, her eyes wide with realization. "Jason," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. We have created something new." He stared at her, the implications dawning on him. They were starting a family, bridging two worlds in a way he hadn't thought possible. The life they were building now held new meaning, and he felt a surge of hope and determination he hadn't known before. With the knowledge of their impending family, Jason and Liara worked tirelessly to prepare for the future. They couldn't remain at the field station forever. The consortium would likely return, and they needed a safer, more secluded place to live. Liara used her abilities to strengthen the bond between themselves and the forest, creating a natural sanctuary further away, where they could raise their child in peace. The new sanctuary was deep within the Amazon, hidden from prying eyes by layers of thick vegetation and dense foliage. The forest itself seemed to welcome them, responding to Liara's presence as though recognizing her as one of its own. In this hidden haven, Jason and Liara built a simple home, a blend of Silvani and human techniques. The walls were crafted from living vines, shaped into sturdy barriers that provided both protection and a sense of belonging within the ecosystem. Sunlight filtered through gaps in the canopy above, illuminating the space in soft, dappled light. As Liara's pregnancy progressed, Jason marveled at her resilience and strength. The faint glow at her abdomen grew brighter each day, a testament to the life they were nurturing together. Despite the challenges they'd faced, a sense of peace settled over them, and Jason found himself cherishing the simplicity of their days, watching Liara commune with the forest, preparing meals from the local vegetation, and listening to the sounds of the jungle. One morning, as they sat together sharing a quiet meal, Liara turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Jason, we should consider sharing what we know with others. There are people on your world who could benefit from our knowledge." Jason nodded, understanding the importance of her words. "You're right. There are scientists, environmentalists, people who want to protect the Earth. If we could teach them what you know, it could change everything." Together they devised a plan to reach out selectively, contacting a small circle of trusted individuals who could understand and appreciate the knowledge Liara brought. They traveled to a nearby city under the cover of night, meeting with key environmentalists and botanists Jason had worked with in the past. Each meeting was carefully planned, each person chosen for their open-mindedness and dedication to preserving Earth's resources. At first, their revelations were met with shock and disbelief, but as Liara demonstrated her abilities, causing plants to grow rapidly, healing injured animals, and creating a sense of harmony in her surroundings, their allies came to understand the profound potential she carried. Jason explained the principles behind Liara's abilities, carefully blending human science with Silvani knowledge to make the information accessible. Soon, word of Liara's unique talents spread within the small scientific community. Those who met her spoke of her as a living embodiment of nature, a beacon of hope for Earth's future. Jason and Liara became silent protectors, guiding researchers and environmentalists, teaching them how to harness nature's power without exploiting it. As the months passed, Liara gave birth to a beautiful, healthy child, a daughter with golden eyes and skin that glowed faintly, mirroring her mother's unique luminescence. They named her Aurora, after the soft light that heralded her arrival, and as she grew, it became clear that she possessed a blend of both human adaptability and Silvani wisdom. Aurora's abilities astonished Jason and Liara. She could communicate with plants on a level that even Liara found remarkable. At a young age, she displayed a deep sensitivity to the world around her, a gift that held the potential to bridge the divide between Earth and the Silvani culture. Over time, Jason and Liara's quiet haven became a place of pilgrimage for scientists, researchers, and environmentalists who wished to learn from them. They maintained strict confidentiality, ensuring that their sanctuary remained a protected space, a place where Earth's secrets could be explored without the threat of exploitation. As Aurora grew, she became a symbol of hope and harmony, a testament to the potential of coexistence between species. Jason and Liara watched with pride as their daughter learned, growing into a young woman who would carry their legacy forward. One evening, as they sat together beneath the canopy, Jason turned to Liara, a sense of peace washing over him. "We've come so far," he said quietly, his gaze lingering on Aurora as she played among the trees. Liara nodded, her eyes filled with contentment. "Our journey is only beginning, Jason. There's so much more we can do to protect this world." He took her hand, feeling the warmth of their shared connection. "Then let's keep going together." And as the stars appeared above, their soft light blending with the glow of the Amazon, Jason, Liara, and Aurora prepared for the future they had chosen. Together, they would protect the Earth, nurture its secrets, and share its beauty with those who truly understood the meaning of harmony.